He's going to introduce our speaker.
Good morning and welcome to the December meeting. We have a very interesting program for you today. It will be conducted by Mr. Famous Peter Laws. And he is doing a program called DXLab Suites. So without further ado, Mr. Peter.
Hello. I did not write this software. I did steal the slides. I stole them from the guy that wrote them. His call sign is AA6YQ, Dave Bernstein up in New England. He is a, well, he's a DXer, but he's retired from IBM. He got to IBM through a couple of different acquisitions they made. He goes all the way back to Data General days. He's got patents. Back in 2008, the ARRL gave him a Technical Achievement Award, a well-deserved one in my opinion, for this software. And he wrote this software with the idea that it was using your computer to harness the available information and present it to you in a way that you could do something with it, actionable intelligence, to allow you to collect DXCC entities and get your DXCC awards. And if you dig around on the ARRL's DXCC site, you will see that he is at the top of the honor roll and has many, many, many DX countries. So for him, the software is working. Initially, at the very beginning, he was doing a more monolithic model where he had one program that did a bunch of things, and very quickly he decided to break that into modules that all work together. He uses the built-in abilities of Windows that are not often actually used for inter-process communication, where information can be transferred back and forth between individual programs. That facility's been in Windows for years and years. Not a lot of software takes advantage of it. Him being a software engineer said, yeah, this is how we're going to do this. So there's actually 8 different applications included in the suite. That's why it's called the DXLab Suite. The main one that you interact with most of the time is the logging program itself, and we'll look at that later. That's why I'm doing this online, so that I can actually bring up my stuff and you can actually see it live on the screen. But it does other things. There's transceiver control. There's a program called Commander. Commander talks to all different kinds of radios. It started out with ICOM because, like me, he's an ICOM fanboy. But it supports all the biggies, Yaesu, Kenwood, ICOM, but it also supports most of the other companies as well. Lee mentioned the Zygu 90. What was it? X90? I forget what the model number is, but anyway, G90. I will look that up later because that is a very popular transceiver, and I would be surprised if that isn't supported, but I will look that up later. It may use something like the ICOM command set or the Yaesu command set or something, and you just set it to some other radio and that works for it. But it allows you to query the radio. It allows you to set the radio. It allows you to basically run the radio from a little screen on your computer if you want. I don't like that. I'd rather turn that big knob and see what's around. There's another program in there, DX Keeper. That's the logging program. It's based on a database. So if any of you are DBAs or DBA wannabes, underneath all of the logging stuff is, I believe it's Microsoft's JET database engine. I don't think it's their Access database engine. And there's an SQL interface. If you're into that sort of thing, you can query the database of all your contacts 9 ways from Sunday. PropView does what you would think it would do. It uses a couple of different propagation engines and takes the information that is distributed via WWV and collates that and makes predictions. It knows where you are because you've entered your location in the configuration. And if you are looking for a particular country, it will tell you when the best times are to be on the air given the current solar conditions. DXView is that's actually what that's the world map part of DXView, that will plot either the spots that you're seeing on the DX clusters, or it will plot your QSOs. There's a bunch of different things it can plot there. Spot collector, you can, if any of you have chased much DX, you're probably familiar with the concept of a DX cluster. These used to be packet clusters back in the day. They used the standard AX25 packets, and people would post a spot in a particular format, and guys came up with software that would treat the packet channel as sort of the internet without going too deeply into the OSI 7-layer model. They would collate that information and present it to anybody that looked at it, and DX clusters were on the air for many years. Those have all, as you might imagine, those have all migrated onto the internet. Amazingly to me, a lot of them are available via Telnet, which is just a terrible idea. It was a terrible idea 20 years ago. It's still a terrible. Anyway, regardless, Spot Collector will act as your agent, and you can set up multiple sources for DX spots. Even if you've got a local packet cluster, which we don't have around here, you can hook up a radio and pull in the information that way, but most of them are internet-based that way. And it will display it to you and color code the spots based on your DXing needs. If you don't need to work the United States because you've worked it on 11 bands, 3 different modes, yada, 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 you won't see those spots. It just eliminates those, because it knows based on what's in your log, it knows what your objectives are, and it color codes the stuff accordingly. QSL routes is interesting. He's got a whole program called Pathfinder that's based on, it was based on the Internet Explorer engine back when that was a thing in Windows. I don't know what he's actually running it with now, but it brings up a web browser like interface. You type in a call sign and it will query things like the QRZ database, the FCC database, ham call, all the different online call signs, but also the QSL routing databases. This used to be a much bigger thing. Even 20 years ago, you know, most people got their DXCC confirmations via a postcard, either direct to you or through the bureau or some other method. You got a postcard and that was your credit. Well, you know, 20 years later, that's really falling by the wayside. A lot of people hate that, I'm, you know, I don't know. I got a lot of QSL cards, but I'd rather not have to store them. It's like QSTs. What do you do with them after 10 years? I switched my QST subscription to electronic. I get it on my iPad now. I don't know. Same thing with QSLs. Most of the traffic these days is Club Log, Logbook of the World, EQSL. DX Keeper, the logging program, will handle all those. It'll interface with all of those and pull in your credits and whatnot. So I suspect Pathfinder is not going to see a whole lot of development time, but remains to be seen. Okay, let's do this. This is the whole suite. Oh, I didn't talk about Wind Warbler, did I? Wind Warbler is another one that's it's not as it does a number of different digital protocols. It does not do FT8, and we'll talk about FT8 in a bit, any of the JT modes. It does do CW if you hook up an external decoder or use your head and decode it that way, but it'll transmit it in any case. It will do RTTY using the MMTTY engine, and it will do PSK31 and a couple of the other variants, the PSK63 and whatnot. The thing is, PSK, I mean, holy cow. There used to be a lot of PSK on the air. We'll have to get WG5T to tell us just how little PSK there is on the air now. RTTY, similar. It had stopped being an everyday QSO mode, really even before PSK31 got big. PSK31 got big, I guess, around 2000 or so. and continued for quite a few years until FT8 really smashed everything. But it'll do that through the MMTTY engine. It'll happily decode and transmit RTTY. Here they are on a really big screen. I've got a 4K screen now, and I really don't have enough room for everything. And he's got the DX keeper window down to just teeny tiny lines there. It gets much bigger, but those are the programs. Up here you have, this is DX keeper. This is the main logging interface. You can see you have columns here for the guy's call sign, what that DXCC entity is, date stamp, what band, what mode, the RST both ways, the name. Now, all of these are configurable. You can change these, and when we see my log here in a little while, mine are all different from this, and you can control that yourself. This is the DX view, the world map view of it, that shows you, again, it can plot your QSOs, it can plot your spots, what you've worked, what you haven't worked, if you've confirmed, verified it, whatever. Down here is Commander. This is the one that, let's see, make sure that I'm still on the screen here. Yeah, I am. Commander, this is the one that talks to your radio. It looks like this is set up for an ICOM 7200. I think Michelle has one of those. But you can adjust the mode down here. You can get to the filters. You can swap VFOs back and forth. You can turn the transmitter on, adjust any of the filters that are available through the interface, all that stuff. There is, you can't see it here, there's a memory bank screen, so you can click around to different areas of different bands. It will throw up a, I don't use this much, but it will throw up a, what do you call these? You know, one of these things, a band map, that'll show those same spots on a representation of your tuning dial, and you can just click on the call sign and it'll tune your radio right to the thing you want to talk to. Here's spot collector up here. Again, each of these green lights is a different spot source, whether it's an actual packet cluster on radio, or whether it's an IRC channel or a web-based thing. It pulls all that stuff in and displays it to you here. It looks like he's got an instance of CW skimmer going, which is why he's getting a dB and a words per minute. That's information that's provided by the CW skimmer. And then it color codes them based on his DXing needs. Now, he doesn't have, I bet he doesn't need all these countries, but he's got it selected so you can see the different color coding here. This is the Wind Warbler program. And again, this is great if you're doing PSK or RTTY. He's got it set up right now to receive RTTY through the MMTTY engine and send it back out the same way. And it also gives you a graphical representation of the spectrum there, so you can see the stuff. Let's go to the next screen. He is as long as he's been in this, and he's been a developer and an engineer since, I don't know, late 60s, I think. And you know how some people get stuck in their ways and they don't keep up with the times. And, you know, this is not written in COBOL. He's kept up. I would say he's a cutting edge Windows developer. He takes in all the requests for features, bug reports, etc., through the mailing list that he's on. I thought I'd updated this. It's actually it's a groups.io. This is an old slide set that I stole. It's not a Yahoo group anymore. It's groups.io. And it's probably more than 5,000 participants on there. And he takes all that stuff and keeps track of it and works on it. Now, as he says, defect repairs get the highest priority, and he tries to fix those in 24 hours. And let me tell you, I've been following this software for at least 15, 16 years. And he does that. He meets that goal. There is a list of enhancements that he keeps track of. They're not you know, depends on the priority. If a lot of people are asking for it, that'll get implemented first. If one guy asks for it, it'll be on the list, but it just might not get there quickly. This is not an open source project. Dave maintains the source. Dave is the guy. There's only one developer. There's not a group of people. He is smart enough, or maybe I should say wise enough, that he has a succession plan. If anything happens to Dave, there are other people that have access to the software, the source code repositories, and all the compilation instructions and all that stuff, so that if something happens to Dave, God forbid, DXLab will survive him and will continue to be developed into the future. There's some information there about frequent releases. Stuff comes out all the time. I'll show you the interface used to keep the programs up to date. You're thinking, well, I got 8 programs. I got to keep them all up to date. Well, it's okay. There's this other program that when you start it, that's how you start the thing. It'll tell you right away. It says if there's app upgrades available, it'll tell you what to do, and you push a button and it installs the new version. It's really pretty cool. That's the one that launches when you launch the program. You see the little icon of the full up space transportation system there, the orbiter, the ET, and the SRBs. The Orion splashdown is around noon tomorrow, just before noon. It should be live on the internet. Those 7 lights, there are 7 lights. Those are the different components of the suite. When you click start button, it will go through and start those. You don't have to start them all. I don't. It's completely configurable. If there's new software available, that's where you'll get notified. It'll say new upgrades. And when you click on new app upgrades, it'll bring up this screen, and you'll get that list of applications. In this workspace, as they're known, everything is enabled. You can see that enable column right here, along with the almost said, well, it is a DOS path. It's the DOS path to the binaries. And it'll tell you over here, it'll tell you the installed version and then what's available, and you click up. Whoops. I tried to click it to upgrade it. But that's what you do in real life. You click it to upgrade, and it just sits there, and it downloads the thing, unpacks it, puts it in the right place, and away you go. And then when you start it, the new version will be available. Because he's a top-notch Windows developer, he makes extensive use of the registry. The registry is not a place for the faint-hearted, and you're not required to go near it, which is good. But if you want to, you can save and load registry settings through here. And in fact, there are multiple workspaces, which I think we get to in this slide deck. And that uses the settings are actually stored in the registry, because that's the way you're really supposed to do it in Windows. If you notice these tabs up here, you have apps started before DXLab and apps started after DXLab. So if you want to set something up before the DXLab stuff boots up or after, you can do that. Let's see. There are databases. I mentioned the database that holds your log. There are other databases as well, and it's actually a longer list now. Like, again, this is an old slide set. There is a DXCC database that understands where all the different countries are and what their call sign prefixes are, because some of them are kind of weird. So they keep track of that. There's an IOTA database that maps the name of islands to their IOTA number. IOTA, you're thinking, is that like POTA? Well, it predates POTA by about 50 years, but same idea, islands on the air. This is an address database that maps, if I remember correctly, it maps US amateurs addresses to their location. I think that's right. LOTW, Logbook of the World, keeps track of the users that are known to be using Logbook of the World. Likewise for EQSL, if you're using EQSL and you have the authenticity guaranteed thing, there's a database of those users as well, and that will allow the system to color code both your log entries and the spot collector entries. There's even a translation database because there's a facility in here that lets you translate words from English into some other language so that you can pretend to speak some, you know, some guy gets on there from Uruguay or something, you can pretend you can speak Spanish. It's rudimentary and it's, you know, it's not a translation box or anything. Whoops, wait, whoa, hey. His design philosophy is different than a lot of programs. There are no menus in this thing. It's almost all buttons. There are panels in some software. We'll see that here in a little while with different things on there, but nothing's in a menu. He uses the tooltip stuff. So when you hover over something, you get useful information. It's not, I don't know if you've used programs where you hover over the save button and the little tooltip pops up and it says save. Well, it's like, yeah, okay, that's the label on the button. Thank you for that. Here, you'll actually get useful information that tells you what that button's gonna really do. Lots and lots of documentation, both on the web and in PDF form. There is an entire wiki that has step-by-step information on doing things, which is incredibly helpful. And again, this is all driven by that same iterative development model where he's taking in all these requests for features, bug reports, etc., and all of that stuff. When he realizes a bunch of people are having the same difficulty with some process within DXLab, he'll write an article about how to do it. You know, here are the steps that you need to do. That's an example of the online help. It'll take you to some of the stuff. Actually, there's built-in documentation. So if for some reason in 2023 you are disconnected from the internet, you still get the documentation, but there's a lot of stuff online to it. But basically the local stuff mirrors what's online, and it gets updated if you update a program and it has new help stuff, it'll update that. It's also available as a PDF. So if you want to stick it on your iPad and read it, or heaven forbid, print it out. Here, this one's 45 pages. You can do that. It's a PDF and it's all formatted correctly. There's an example of the wiki where it has the step-by-step instructions for connecting up your ICOM. He has the same stuff for Kenwood. He has the same stuff for Yezu. I will check to see if he has the same stuff for Zygu. I can't imagine that hasn't come up before. And then the right answer must be that it uses the same command set as some other radio, and you just set it to that radio and it's all fine. Remember I mentioned the tooltips. Here's the tooltip. That's for he's hovering over, he's hovering over command interval here. And instead of saying command interval, it actually says, well, this is the time interval between command groups sent to the transceiver in milliseconds. And they're all like that. Occasionally they'll be wrong. Occasionally they'll be missing. If you shoot a note to the mailing list, it'll get fixed pretty quickly. Now, these are kind of minor defects. They don't really affect the operation of anything, so it's not going to be fixed within 24 hours. It's a minor defect, but it will get fixed. I know because I've done it. So that's Commander, DXView, DXKeeper. We've talked about. DXKeeper handles all your QSO logging. It takes that QSO information and allows you to set up QSLing. And again, in 2023, boy, a lot of that's electronic these days. It doesn't have to be. If you don't want it to be, it doesn't have to be. This will create labels for you, and you stick them on your card and you mail off the card. If you don't have your own cards, it will print out a card for you of your own design with all the correct information on it. It also keeps track of all the awards that you're chasing, and you set up what your objectives are. If you don't give a grain of sand about an island in the Pacific and you're not chasing IOTA, you unselect IOTA and it doesn't bother you about your IOTA status. if you have multiple QTHs like I do, the logging handles that in a graceful way. I have all my Illinois QSOs are in here. All my Arkansas QSOs are in here. I've taken my satellite stuff down to Padre Island, and I have a separate QTH set up for that because it's in a different grid square. So in a different state for that matter. So for other people, I got to get the QSO information correct on their QSL card for their what awards they're looking for. You can import stuff from various types of files. You can export stuff. Let me mention this before I forget. Whatever log system you use, I'll be right up front with you. DXLab Suite is probably not the most popular because it's kind of complicated. There is a learning curve. Once you get towards the top of that curve, you'll never move to anything else. But you got to get there. And I understand that. And there's a lot of other solutions out there for keeping track of logs. Whatever you do, make sure it can import and export amateur data interchange format. It's a standard log format worked on by a bunch of smart guys, including Dave that writes this, to make sure that the right information is tagged the right way so that any program can import any other program's QSOs. So if you decide, you know what, I would like to try this, but I have 1,000 QSOs in, you know, Bob's log program, I don't know, some other name, export that as an ADIF file. You can import it here and have all the right stuff in the right columns. Just an aside. That's what it looks like. As I said, all those columns are adjustable and just adjust them to taste, whatever you want to do. When you click on a call sign, the bottom one is selected JY4 and E is selected. JY is Jordan. It looks like he worked them on RIDI. They sent 599 both ways because everybody sends 599 both ways. He was using 1500 watts when he made the QSO, so he was probably pretty loud over there in Amman, Jordan. But it records all the pertinent information. It's got the transmit and receive frequencies if you're working split. It's got the start and end times. Entity here is, you can't see my finger pointing. Entity here is the DXCC entity name. And you'd see all his other QSOs. We'll look at some of these buttons. Clicking new would add another new one at the bottom and you'd fill in the information. CBA would go out and use Pathfinder to find his call book address. You can delete records, you can generate reports, you can plot them on that map that we saw on DXView. Real-time award tracking is a different window that comes up that shows you where you are in terms of your DXing objectives rather. There is a separate capture window and we'll show you that here in a bit, that is more conducive to sitting there and making QSOs, talking to people. You can fill in all the details in a different format than this. This is not the easiest way to enter the QSO data if you're entering it live. Down here, you can sort by different things, by time, by call sign. There's an advanced window that brings up a completely different sort mechanism. If you want to sort by mode and then frequency, you can do that. If you want to sort by, you know, DXCC entity and then time, you can do that. Let's see. Comprehensive, I think we talked about all of that stuff. Capture window, should be able to see that. There's a bigger view of the window. Again, resizable because it's just a window. There are tabs for different things, but you'll find no menus here. And different tabs obviously have different functions and the names are pretty accurate. Let's see, do that. He's got it sorted by previous QSOs with that JY4NE. So he has, let's go back here. If you double click on the call sign, it will then show you all the QSOs you've had with Ali over there in Amman, Jordan. And it'll bring up all the pertinent information and the dates and times, et cetera, mode. Looks like he's pretty active on a bunch of different modes. This is the award sub panel here. And again, you can with this selector over here on the right, you can determine what's on this screen. He's doing it this way because if you do everything, it's huge. And if you don't have a 4K screen, it gets kind of crazy. You end up being able, you gotta resize it so you see about 3 QSOs at the bottom if you want to see all these tabs. But this'll tell you now. He's got JY4 and E selected, and that's in Asia. It's JY4 for WPX purposes. Here's the CQ zone. Here's the ITU zone. If it was an IOTA, which Jordan is not, it would probably have the number in there. He doesn't have the grid in there because on HF that doesn't mean a whole lot. If Jordan had primary and secondary political subdivisions like counties or cities, that would show up there as well. Let's see. Here's one, Asiatic Russia. Vit, he's probably been drafted by Putin, but whoops. This one has a little bit more information. He's got the grid square for Vit, and the same information as before, but he has the I don't know if that's an oblast or a district or what, but it's KK. I guess that's probably for Krasnoyarsk. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce that clearly, but it'll allow you to record that information, because sometimes there are awards that the Japanese are famous for this. They have awards for collecting all their city names and county names, and you can track all that through the interface here. In fact, here's an example of how you would select that, and that's sure enough, that's Oblast 103, code is KK, et cetera, et cetera. You keep track of all that stuff if you want to. If you don't care, you can ignore that very easily. Here's the paper QSL information. He sent this guy a card on October 7th of 2010. He has this set to R, which is requested. When he gets one back, he'll select that and change it to yes, I've received it, and that will update all his award tracking. Things like MSG here, message, allows you to determine the message that's printed on the QSL card if that's what you want to do. It has the postal address of the station at the other end. It lets you determine how you've sent it. Is it direct? Is it via the bureau? Is it via club log? That's all in there. And then once the award has been verified at ARRL or at CQ Magazine, you can click on the yes, it's been verified, and that also updates the database here. So yeah, it can get crazy. Likewise for online QSL, same idea. Here's EQSL. I don't actually use that one, but I do use Logbook of the World, and it will keep track of when you uploaded it, when you downloaded it. If you get a confirmation, it'll keep track of that. He doesn't have the coloring turned on. Otherwise, this guy would be in yellow because he is a member of Logbook of the World. That's all we need. There's the coloring. If I remember correctly, yellow I know is Logbook of the World. I think pink is EQSL, authenticity guaranteed. And I think blue is both of them. If I could widen this screen, it would actually tell us the color code over here, but can't quite do that on here. You can set up, if you want to record other stuff and attach it to a QSO record, there's 8 or 10, I'm thinking there's 10, but there's at least 8 I'm pointing at the screen, you can't see that. 8 or 10 user-defined fields. Now these say things like condition CW speed. These are all, they're all adjustable. You determine what goes in there, and it just adds it to the database with that name in it. Let's see, capture window. That's the one I was mentioning before. If you're just making QSOs and you don't want to deal with the database interface directly, you can use this. You type in the guy's call sign. It's going to tell you when your last QSO was down here, if you've ever worked the guy before, and how you worked him, and it'll pull in all the information that you had previously in your log. And then it'll pull in here, he's working them on at the bottom end of 40 there on CW, and then put in the new information here. And when he's done, he'll click log. Maybe he wants to send that out as a spot on the DX cluster network. You can click spot, it'll use spot collector and send that information out that way. You want to look up, maybe you've never worked this guy before and you want to look him up in the call book, you click look up and it looks him up. You can cut that down too. If you're not insane, you can get rid of a lot of these fields and just look at that instead. And there he's put the stuff in and it shows up as a new QSO in here. He doesn't have this strictly sorted by date. Is that right? Not sure why that's not showing up at the bottom. Oh, because that's the previous QSOs. I get it. Yeah, because we're 10/7 here, and this is back in August of 2010. Yeah. So okay, these are the previous QSOs with that station. And let's go over here. It'll pull in, as I mentioned, if you've got the old, and this is another thing that's like changing, right? Even in the time that I've been following this, you can still buy CD-ROMs either through Buckmaster or through the Flying Horse Radio Amateur Callbook CD-ROM and have a local database of ham call signs. But honestly, it's mostly moved to the net now. You can still pull all that stuff in, whether it's off a CD. If you want to do the CD, you can do the CD, or you can pull it from the offline stuff. I have in the past had a QRZ.com data subscription. And boy, that makes it really cool. You can do that, and I'll show you later. I let the subscription go because I wasn't using it as much. So you're limited to a certain number of lookups a day. If you pay Fred money, it's unlimited pulling that stuff up. It does let you update them all. If you want to select all your QSOs and update them all from QRZ, it'll do that for you. I'm not sure I recommend doing it that way, but it can be done that way. QSL cards and labels, addresses, envelopes, all that stuff, both for Logbook of the World and EQSL. It couldn't be simpler. I click on a QSO, I add it to the queue, I click upload, and off it goes. And later on, I click check my QSLs, and if there's new matches in there, they come back, and the log gets updated. Sorry. Again, it'll make files for the different programs that are out there. There are other programs that make QSL cards and make labels, and it'll generate the correct files for them. It'll work with the online QSL request service, global QSL. It's not on here, but oh, it is. It is. Clublog is there as well. It'll upload your stuff to Clublog. This is the QSL queue. It's currently set for cards and address envelopes. So he's going to print the stuff out automatically. If somebody has a manager, it'll deal with the fact that they have a manager, and it'll address it correctly so that it goes through the QSL manager. Print cards, print addresses. Let's see. There's an example of what you can create. It creates a pretty basic QSL card, but it has all the correct information on it pulled right out of your database, so it's correct. And you design all this stuff here. If you want to get a little more fancy, well, here's showing that it'll do multiple QSOs. If you want to get a little more fancy, you can actually put a background image and make it look even cooler. That's the queue. Are we looking at? Oh, here we're going to generate labels, and there I've done this a gajillion times. You set it up for your label type, and it. Let's see, QSL. He doesn't show it here, but depending on what kind of Avery label type you have, it'll print it out in the right size. You stick the label paper in your laser printer, your inkjet, and it prints out the labels. and you slap those on the card and mail them off. That's way easier for me than writing them out. And it's less time consuming again for me than printing out my own cards, primarily because I still have a stack of cards of my own. Here is Logbook of the World. Works pretty much the same way. You fill up, add all the stuff to the QSL queue, and you hit the upload button. The upload button will call the TQSL software that signs your QSOs to upload them to Logbook of the World. Takes care of all that stuff. You do have to set your QTH ID. In TQSL, there's a station location. This understands those station locations and calls them correctly in TQSL so that you don't, when you're on that vacation in Hawaii and made some QSOs, it doesn't put your Oklahoma information with that QSO. It puts the Hawaii information with that QSO. You got to set it up, but it understands all that stuff and lets you do that. Here's the award tracking. You can see it does pretty much all the different awards. Obviously, DXCC is the biggie, but Worked All Zones has its following. Worked All Prefixes has its following. Where's my thing here? I don't know if you can see that. I got the WPX award this year, finally. It does them all. On some of these, it will arrange the submission so that you can submit it to the award granting authority. Other ones will just spit out a progress report. Depends how well integrated it is. Japanese awards, Canadian awards, Russian awards, all different kinds of stuff. Maidenhead reports, CQDX, et cetera, et cetera. That's the awards that it supports in one way or another. Sometimes it will just identify what you need. Sometimes it will go the full thing and actually create the submission for you. There's a lot of stuff there. If you're into wallpaper, it's a good way to keep track of it all. There is a real-time award tracking. That's that rat button that showed up on DXKeeper. You can look at a particular entity and it will tell you where you've worked it. So here he's worked Ecuador on, he's worked the entity, he's worked his phone, CW, RIDI, PSK, and pretty much every band up through 10. V means it's been turned in and verified by ARRL. C means it's confirmed. He's got a card or he's got a QSL mark in Logbook of the World, but he hasn't submitted it for any awards yet. And it'll put it in a chart form too. So when you click on that country, it'll show up and you can see at a glance what you're still missing if you're missing anything. And again, you can look at your unworked, your worked, your requested, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Here's another different award, the CQDX Marathon. Same idea, just a different award. Worked all zones. I'm missing a bunch of zones. All those zones on the other side of the planet, like the Indian Ocean stuff, I can't get there. It will print out text summaries as well. Here he's worked 338 honor roll countries. He's got cards for them all. He's got most of them confirmed by other methods, but he's turned them all in so that they're actually verified by the ARRL. Then it's broken out by phone, CW, RIDI, and then this is his mixed total. This is his all-time. This includes deleted entities. It's a higher number, but he tracked all those different things. Geez, he's only got 5 countries on 2 meters. Wow, slacker. If you're really into, and again, this is another thing that it's kind of going away. It's part of the paper QSLing thing, right? You'd send off a card and it's like, well, when did I send that card off? How long has it been? Well, it'll actually generate an aging report. And you can see he's trying to get that 4L, which is Georgia, confirmed, and it's been 30 when he generated this. It's been 38 weeks since he sent the QSL card and hasn't had anything back, because that's how it used to go in paper days. This is the record sheet for cards that he's going to turn in to either a card checker or directly to the ARRL for DXCC. It tells you what order to place them in, because paper cards need to be checked in a certain order. This is all lined up in that order that they want, and it tells you which card to go and find and what order to put them in. Again, I'm pointing, you can't see that. It tells you what order to put them in, band, then mode, et cetera, and that's the way the card checker wants it. That's the way ARRL wants it. Again, for paper cards, yeah, I don't know. Paper cards rapidly becoming not a thing. You can update your logs from DXCC, the DXCC interface on the website. It'll synchronize what you have in your log with what they think they have. Wind warbler, spot collector, we'll skip over wind warbler because I don't know how many guys are doing PSK these days other than Bill. This is the DX spot database I mentioned earlier. Multiple spot sources bring all this information. They combine it with your needs and color code stuff appropriately. If you click the need button down here, it will only show you the stuff you need, because if you don't care about another PY2 on 10 meters in Sao Paulo, which there are hundreds, when you click that need button, all that stuff that you don't need for your award objectives goes away. So you click on that, and now it only shows you what you really need. Oh yeah, okay, I need that VK on 6 meter FM. Sure I do. But you get the idea. It takes all that information in and puts it in an actionable form so you can go there. And what you can do now is you double click on this guy's call sign. It sets your antenna to 1815 CW mode, and you should hear him. If you've got DXView connected up to your automated rotator, it'll turn it. Now it's not going to turn your rotator on 160 meters, but if you're on 6 meters, let's say, it would rotate your beam to the correct heading based on where the guy is. And again, can plot it all on the map. There's Australia over there. There's your PYs over there. Same thing, use that same color coding for the band map feature of Commander. If you want to see all that stuff graphically, you can. You know, I like to look at the radio. I don't like to look at the computer when I'm operating necessarily, but you know, whatever you want to do is fine. There is a built-in web server. Man, how old is that phone? It's Motorola. Is that like a Palm phone or something? Anyway, he says it's Android. There is a web server in it, so you could conceivably look at your spot collector output elsewhere in the house by looking at this. Spot collector will also make voice announcements. There's a whole series of snippets in there that are strung together, and it'll call out the country name and the call sign and the mode and the band, whatever you want it to call out. So you can be off in another room and you'll hear DX KH2, and it'll tell you, you know, and again, it's based on your needs. So you're not going to get like Joe down the street type of stuff. Prop view, 3 different ionospheric prediction engines in there. You may have heard some of these if you ever looked into propagation prediction, fairly common engines. It pulls that data from spot collector. Guys will take the WWV numbers, because they announce them several times a day or several times an hour, I forget, several times a day. And they will put them into the DX cluster database. Spot collector will pull that stuff out and use that information, pulls the locations from DXView and produces a graph. So here's you at the bottom, here's the DX. It's sunlight for him now, it's dark for you. Likewise, in the rest of the day, it's flipped the other way. It explains that all to you graphically, And then it tells you what bands are best for that particular country. This is India. They're, again, opposite side of the planet. You know, these are all percentages. Here's the confidence levels for the different colors. You know, there's only about a 10% chance you're going to work India on 15 meters. Now, this was back in 2010. That's what? That's 11 years. Well, that was a good spot in that. It was not a good cycle, but it was a good spot in that cycle. You might be able to. There's a 1 in 10 chance. But if you drop down to like 17 or 20, you're going to have a much better chance based on these confidence levels here of actually working that Indian station. And again, it varies by the time of day. There it pulls out the predictions and it just tells you the bands because you don't care, you don't want to know that. It just tell me what bands to work. There are a number of beacons out there that can be monitored, and this can be set up to listen to those in the correct order. This is run by the Northern California DX Foundation, I think still. It will tune your receiver to each of these spots, and you'll be able to actually hear if there's good propagation to these different areas. And if you need to rotate the antenna, this will rotate the antenna for you. Pathfinder, again, this is that one will look up QSL routing. It queries a whole bunch of stuff. These days, it's not as big a deal because a lot of stuff is on Logbook of the World, and you just upload your stuff and it comes back. Or it's on Club Log because the guy wants a couple bucks. Okay, fine. It's still going to go the same way. It might come in as a QSL card. Probably not, but this lets you look for all those routes. If there's one country that you've worked and you want the credit for, and you know you worked the guy and you really want to get a card, this is the tool that lets you do that. Here's an example of it. VK3ZL. It actually goes right to Australia's licensing authority and pulls it up and gives you his mailing address. You can do, well, do they not give you? No, okay, I must have cut them all out. But you can see there's a number of Buckmaster's online call book or the CD version QRZ. This is a QSL routing guy. Actually, most of these are. You can even Google the guy's call sign from here. So, you know, again, paper QSLing, not as big a deal as it used to be, but some people still do it. Sometimes it's the only way to get a QSL, you know, get a QSL, a credit for it. So this is the tool to do that. I think that's just an overview. Oh yeah. Because Dave is Dave, and he's not proprietary about this. It is closed source. He's not giving the source away. But he gives the binaries away. But he believes in interoperation, and just like his modules interoperate, a lot of other stuff is set up to interoperate with DXLab Suite. DX Atlas and Google Earth are two examples that'll take that QSO plotting stuff and make even better maps than what's included with the suite. Spot Spy is another one that collects DX spots and feeds them to spot collectors. CW Skimmer is another one. DM780 is the digital module that goes with Ham Radio Deluxe, I think. FL Digi, some of you probably use for the different digital modes. JT Alert, which I use in combination with, he doesn't have it here. Huh, that's weird. It works with WSJT-X to do the FT8 stuff, and it will actually populate, it will actually put stuff into the log for you. MixW is another one similar. MMSS TV, a couple of us used that a couple of years ago when AG5 BV, I can remember Peter's call sign, was doing some SSTV stuff on VHF. Multi-PSK is another one that does not only does PSK31, but it does a bunch of other digital modes. And they will all talk to the suite here and can pass data back and forth. I'm surprised he doesn't. Why does he not have? Huh, that's weird that WSJT is not here, because it works fine with WSJT. There are a bunch of other add-ins as well that let you do other things. Again, it's a, he calls it the DXLab ecosystem because he's happy to make the application programming interface, the API, available to other developers. If they want to exchange data back and forth, he's got defined ways of doing that. If you're thinking about what kind of computer to use, ignore all this stuff up here, because that really doesn't apply in 2023. You really need, I mean, it's hard to find a computer these days with 2 gigs of RAM. They're usually 4 gigs, which is plenty. It's not as heavy a program as you might think it is, but you shouldn't be running XP or Vista these days. You should at least be running 10. 7 was a good release, but it's obsolete too. And it'll run under 32 or 64 bit. Where do you get it? You go to the DXLab Suite page. The first thing you download is the launcher. The launcher will actually go out and find the pieces you want and install them for you. And you'll end up with all the stuff you need. To get around user access control on the later versions of Windows, Dave recommends that, even though he's a big Windows guy, he recommends you don't put it in the default location for binaries, which is usually the system Windows 32 application, whatever. I can't remember it off the top of my head. He recommends that you make a folder called DXLab right off the root of your C drive and put all the stuff under that, and that'll keep you out from the clutches of the user access control stuff on Windows. Yeah, program files x86 is the default stuff, and he tells you, if you want to do that, he tells you how to do it. Now this says 7 and Vista. Again, I stole this presentation several years ago, so it's been updated for all the current versions of Windows. I think I'm going to stop talking now, which you're all probably pleased about. And I think what I'm going to do now is do this and do this. This is, now it's going to be a little hard to see, I think, here. I can do a little bit of zooming, but not a lot. Let's see here. That's the, can you see that okay? Oh, I can't get feedback.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, you can see it. Okay, that's the launcher button. I have multiple workspaces defined here. I have a generic one. I have one set up just for FT8. I have one that just had a few different things running in it. I was doing some log stuff for my alma mater, W5YM, and I think I've since deleted that workspace. I have another one for just SWL stuff, or medium wave, more likely, or FM, that pulls up a different set of applications with a different database defined, so that I can do other types of logging with this. And when you can just load the new information there, it'll populate this with different stuff. So let's get rid of that. Let's go over here. Let's do the start button. I will have to undoubtedly rearrange my windows here so that you can see everything. Oh yeah, I didn't show you a thing. Let me show you a thing. So here, this is the config for for launcher. Can I just do, no, I can't. Trying to make this big enough so you can see. Yep. That that's the configuration screen for the DXLab launcher itself. I don't launch anything before. I don't use, in this configuration, I don't use all the different options here, so I have them unselected. But I do start some stuff afterwards. I start up WSJT-X as well as JT Alert. I do that through a batch file, a DOS batch file, but it works just fine. So when my configuration comes up, I get the DXLab stuff, but I also get WSJT-X, which is obviously is doing the FT8 stuff, which we'll look at here in a minute. I just, well, you can't see it on the screen. I scrolled down and flipped it to 20 meters, but this is my log here. Hang on just one sec. Apparently I've been talking for a long time and I hadn't had any coffee. That's better. So these are the panels I have open for DXLab, for the DX Keeper. You can obviously change that to however you want it to be. It shows me the color coding. I know that this WD8 OGS that I worked on, OQS that I worked, I think this was on, wasn't this the other night during, yeah, it was during the Elmer night. We did the video Elmer night, even though you all were having a good time at Golden Corral. And that's a QSO that I made with that guy. And if I double click on that, it's the only QSO I've ever had with him. Let's do this. Let's make sure that's really true. Click on call. Yeah, it is. Name QTH. Well, I don't actually have that information, but I did pull in his grid square, and we know he's in Ohio, and we know the county based on his grid square. If I do edit to unlock it so that I can change fields in here, I go over here. Here's the adder box, right? What is that? Well, that's your QSO partner's QSL address. Double click for QSL editor. Well, I could do that. And what I can do here is I can click on call sign. Oh, call not connected to Pathfinder. See, now I didn't have Pathfinder running. Naughty, naughty me. Let me do that. Let me run Pathfinder. Pathfinder, again, is the one that looks stuff up for you. So now if I do that, here's Pathfinder. And if I click call sign now, it's going to use that. It's going to pull in his information and it's going to populate this. So if I wanted to send him paper QSL in Pittsburgh, Ohio, I would have that information, and it puts that. I didn't do it because I didn't hit save. That's why. Hit save. It will fill in that box, and now that's a permanent part of his QSO record in that database. Now, as it turns out, if you look over here, is that on the screen? It is. I sent him a logbook of the world thing. He almost immediately sent it back to me because he is a member. That's why it's yellow. And that's how I have a lot of his information down here, is his 6-digit grid square and his county and whatnot, because that came back with the logbook of the world entry. It calculates the lat long, which would be important if I had a rotator that was connected to my system. It would be able to send it to the right location if I wanted to. Let me see if I can pull up. And WD9EWK. Put that in there. These are satellite QSOs I've had with Patrick, WD9EWK. He's a prolific satellite operator. If I click on one of these and you look over here, you'll see that the mode is satellite, and it'll actually, you can fill in the satellite name and the satellite mode. It will also, because it knows from the spot collector stuff, it knows what the solar conditions were that day. That's not relevant for a satellite QSO, but it is relevant if you're doing HF stuff, and it pulls all that information in. it supports meteor scatter. It supports all kinds of stuff. EME stuff, if that's your jam, it can do that as well. And this one, another one, sent logbook of the world probably the day I made the QSO. Yeah, 6/19 of 16. Yep. And he uploaded the same day, so we got our QSL match there right away. But that's Patrick Stoddard out there in Scottsdale. Again, he's a prolific satellite operator. Yeah, there's Sardinia. Oh, I've actually worked that guy twice. I didn't realize that. I worked him on 30 during the Elmer night as well, but I'd worked him on 12 earlier. I didn't realize that. Okay, another one where it does record the solar conditions there. So if you're into that sort of thing and you're kind of keeping track of, well, who can I work during certain solar conditions, is all that information stored with the QSO. Let's see. I don't have any. Maybe we'll make a QSO here in a bit on FT8 and I'll show you how to upload stuff. But that's the QSL queue. You can, if you have paper ones or you have electronic ones, depending on what you select up here, if it is marked in the log as requested, and you hit this add requested, it will populate. And I don't have any that are marked that way. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I don't. It will populate this queue. You click upload to logbook of the world and off it goes. And that's all you have to deal with logbook of the world. In an hour or two, you do sync logbook of the world QSLs, and it'll fill in all the stuff and update your log appropriately. I can't see a show of hands, so I'm not gonna ask how many
I can get you an answer if you want it.
Well, I'm curious how many people have actually used or seen FT8. Getting many
About 8.
answers. About 8, really? FT8? This is the this is unrelated to DXLab. I'm kind of tired of talking about DXLab. I'm kind of done. This is 20 meters currently. This is the FT8 screen of WSJT-X, which is Joe Taylor's contribution to the amateur world. Joe Taylor, for those that don't know, K1JT, is an astronomer, and in particular, a radio astronomer. He got his Nobel Prize for stuff he was doing with pulsars and receiving, I was going to say receiving data from pulsars, not quite, but receiving RF and whatnot from pulsars and studying them. And guess what? He knows a lot about digital signal processing. Is that a surprise? Shouldn't be. He's also been a ham since he was a little kid. And so the two things seem to get combined. Actually, I'm pretty sure one led to the other, which has led back to this. He's done a lot of interesting things with digital signal processing and come up with a number of different protocols that are very good at being decoded with very, very low signal thresholds. FT8 is by far the most popular one he's done. Each of those columns there, those jaggedy columns, is a station's transmission that I'm receiving. In those green lines that are coming up in that window on that side is the decoded information from those lines. It will tell me the time, obviously, but it will tell me how many dB down that was from the noise. There's a time indicator there that will tell you how far the guy's clock is off. I can tell you that N1JMC's clock needs to be adjusted. That's why it's pink. The ones in green are CQs. The bright green RR73 there is telling me that, okay, he just finished his QSO, and that's RI1ANU, which is down in Antarctica currently, just as a flag to you to tell you, okay, you should go ahead and call him. It's pretty automated. A lot of people don't like it because there is very little room for adding information that's not included in the protocol. It's basically call sign QTH in the form of a grid square and the software's idea of the received signal strength. And that's pretty much it. I use an auxiliary program with this called JT Alert, which if I can find where the window went here, will highlight call signs for me based again on my DXing needs, because it talks to my database in DXLab and tells me when something I need comes up. Now there's not a lot of stuff I need, at least it's currently on the air on 20 meters. So I'm not getting a lot of stuff showing up here. But if I did need a country, it would show up here. Let's go over to a different band here. Let's go to 17 meters and see what's up there. There's more likely to be stuff I need on 17 than on 20. Anyway, I wanted to show that to you, and I'm hoping that I'll see something here that's pretty workable so I can show you the process. Oh, there's some stuff.
Peter, can we see if we have any questions?
Yeah, do that. Do that, Master of Ceremonies, man. I can't hear anything, so.
Yeah, stand by.
I have a couple of questions on it. I'm concerned one thing that I'm really concerned about is that, like, when we get Crozet or, you know, a real DX entity, whether this can help me to know what times it would be best for me to try to make contact with that station. And the other thing is how different is this program from HDR, Ham Radio Deluxe? I'm sorry, Ham Radio Deluxe.
Well, there's a price difference. Ham Radio Deluxe costs what we here in America call money, and DXLab doesn't. It's free. Dave gives it away. Don't ask me the motivation for doing that. I don't understand it exactly, but whatever. He's happy giving it away. What is the difference? I've never used Ham Radio Deluxe. I know that the functionality is pretty equivalent, but I'm not a user of Ham Radio Deluxe, so I'm not really qualified to speak about what it can and can't do. I can talk about propagation stuff, as you asked about. And what we can do here, where am I going here? Well, here I'm trying to work this 5P1KZX, which is, I don't know where that is, somewhere off somewhere. Oh, it's Denmark. It's actually an OZ. So because I double clicked on it in WSJT-X, it shows up in all my DXLab stuff. I'm curious about the propagation, so I can do from here. Short path prediction. There is the prediction for, let me scroll over there a bit. That's the prediction for right now, because that's where the vertical bar is, between here and Denmark. Well, I'm on 17 meters, and 17 meters, and it knows that I'm on 17 meters because it's, again, it's plugged in, right? There's a very good chance I could work this station on 17 meters, and I'm hoping that's true because apparently I don't have OZ on 17 meters. Now, if you look over at, I don't know if you can see that exactly, he's at 23 dB down. That's that's about as low as you can go in FT8, but I've worked stations down there plenty of times. So
Peter,
I'm banging away.
Could you just put in a call sign like, I don't know, JY1 or something?
Yes,
if you wanted to chase
so,
that?
So what is Crozet is what, FR something? Oh, let me do it this way, Peter. Crozet Island, FT8W. Oh, okay. All right. So there's Crozet. I don't have them on anything. Hey, I need them. Okay, let's do a short path prediction to there. So if it was right now, I'd have a pretty good shot.
Can you zoom in on that a bit?
Well, you don't like those tiny words, huh?
Yeah, they're just blurred. There we go.
So I put in, I selected Crozet over here in DX view. Because they're all connected, prop view knew what I was talking about when I collected predict to short path, Crozet Island. It's 17,000 kilometers away. So you'll need a lot of frequent flyer points to get there. But it tells me that right now actually would be pretty good. I could probably get them, 15 meters, 12 meters, 10 meters should be open to Crozet right now. Now Crozet, I don't know when that's taking place, but that would tell me what time of day, and it predicts it out into the future here too. This is later on today up through 24 hours to 2400 UTC. So
you know when to take a nap.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, you really would. And the propagation's been so good lately. Now,
Thank you, Peter. That was really useful.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And how do we, using this suite, how do we bring that particular picture up?
That's part of, so you need DXView running because DXView lets you select the country and all that, and it shows you the different credits that you have, which I have none. And now you've made me curious. I'm going to need to find out more about this expedition. But I selected Crozet Island here over in DXView because it knows, the different programs know over here in prop view, it knows that I've been looking over here at Crozet Island. So in the prediction screen, when I say what's the predicted propagation from here to there via short path, and I could do long path too if I wanted to. It'll be a different picture.
Peter, can you just show how to bring that up? Use the question how you bring it up. So click on the launcher.
Yes, click on the launcher once it's installed. Now, by default, when you hit start, everything's going to open up. If you've installed all the components will open up. Again, I have multiple workspaces for different things because I've been using this for a long time. But if prop view and DX view are not running, you can click those, start them up. Once you start them up, select, in my case, I selected the entity by name, and prop view knew who I was looking at. So there we go. Now, if this was a spot in Spot Collector and I double clicked on it and I was trying to listen to somebody that, somebody spots FT8, oh, that's funny, FT8WXY or whatever their call sign is going to be, it would populate this. Well, here, let's see if we can do that. Let's see if we can demo that. Let's get Spot Collector running. Hello, Spot Collector. Where did you go? Hello.
It's running. It's got a green.
Yeah, I know. I got stuff on the screen though. Yeah, and I don't know where the window's gone. That's funny.
Oh,
This
well.
happens a lot, even with a 4K. And there's another screen to my right. Oh, here we go. Here it is. Here it is. It's connecting to different sources. It's bringing them up. It knows what frequency I'm on because it talked to Commander. If for example, well, there's SX, that's Greece, right? So if I double click on Greece, it says, oh, SSX, oh, okay, very good. Now it's populated that call sign into this because again, they're connected. It knows that's Greece. In fact, it's Peloponnese. Gives me the UTC time, gives me all the blah, 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 blah. I've worked Greece on 15 and 17. I don't actually need it. That's fine. When I click SP now, it gives me the propagation to grease. So if crozet came up in the spot collector and I double clicked on crozet, it would do all the same stuff. And I think it, oh, and you can select different engines too, if you're really into it. I thought.
Peter, we're running up against time and we got.
Yeah. Well, I could
got
go
no more
on. I've
questions.
only got another 2 hours of information. So
Yeah. And then there's a test afterwards.
There is a test. It is multiple choice, I must say.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Are there any other questions? I did want to, this was sort of a value add thing, because I know there's some people that just haven't seen FTA, and it's not scary. It takes some work. You got to hook up your radio so that you can get the audio into the computer and yada yada. But it's a fun mode for me anyway. Oh, there's KB5 HXTC. I've got it set to color code stuff. And that's he's in our club, KB5 XHT. So all my friends are in there, so
Right.
they call show up in purple. Questions?
We're good.
All right.
Thank you, Peter Laws, for a wonderful program on DXLab Suites.
What's the length of a license term?